This is Andrew. I'm coming in from Denver. Hope everyone had a productive evening and morning. I'm going to walk through some slides here about what to expect for tomorrow night, how to set yourself up for success. We'll answer questions here in Denver, and then when we're done, you're welcome again to grab any of your local organizers to ask questions from there. Also want to point out this presentation, the slides are in Waffle. They're one of the last cards near the end, so you're welcome to walk back through it. Most of this information is also on the Presenting at Challenge Weekend page at the bottom. You're welcome to look there as well. So we're gonna walk through what we see as best practices, what we think is the best way to go about this. If you all decide to deviate from those, certainly up to you. I would have a good reason to do so. This is our 4th year. We've watched a lot of pitches. So, but if you have a compelling reason to go about it a different way, that's up to you. Again, we're going to walk through some questions that you should have answered, but it's up to you to explain and tell a compelling story to the judges. So start out by making sure that you've answered what problem you're solving. Explain how the project addresses a business problem. Another way to think about that is to answer why would a business owner use your application? And it's a really key question. If you can't answer it, you probably should rethink your business model. So target audience. And let me just take one step back by saying we've sort of broken down the judging criteria within these questions I'm asking. So you'll notice that all of them are going to go back to one of those 5 criteria, but I'm not going to draw all the direct parallels as we go here. I'm just asking a series of questions. Target audience, what is your target market? Who will use your app? Again, if you have an awesome idea that no one's going to use, it's not that awesome of an idea. So we need to make sure that there's someone out there who's going to be interested in using your app. Impact, if users, and by users we mean business decision makers, that's a key here, adopted your solution, what would be the potential impact on the business community? This gets at one of those strategic decisions that we talked about last night. If you decide to target a niche market, but you're going to have a big impact there, that's great. If you have a more shallow, or if you have a much broader application, but it's going to, go a little bit more shallow, that's okay too. That's up to you to describe that process and make your case to the judges as to why one should be valued over another when you pitch on Sunday night. Market testing, have you tested your app or your idea with potential users? And again, users are business decision makers. What was their feedback? I know it's obviously Saturday. If you haven't done this yet, I would still encourage you to try to do so. If you get to go back to the food truck example, if you're building an app to help food truck owners, I would go find someone today. I know that there's a lot of different things that you're trying to get done this weekend, but getting that early feedback from your adopters is really crucial. It's going to save you time down the road, and if you can explain that you've already achieved some of that feedback and incorporated it into your app, it's going to be very, very compelling in front of the judges on Sunday night. So if you have reached out and gotten feedback, I would be sure to point that out when you're walking through it on Sunday night. Sorry, I'm walking backwards. Different. How does your application display a new approach or method of addressing the business problem? There's obviously some market research inherent in this question. So I wouldn't expect you to do really intense market research, but you need to do some level of due diligence to make sure that there isn't already another killer app out there doing exactly what you're proposing. So, and if there are especially common, competitors in the market already that, for example, your average might know about, I would point out how you're different from what's out there right now. So again, competition, is there anyone providing a solution in the market now? And if yes, how is your solution different? And if your solution isn't different, again, you need to think about your value proposition. Adoption, what's your implementation strategy? This is a specific criteria in the judging, or a specific section in the judging criteria. How will you get users, business decision makers, to adopt your application? And I would also speak to what's the skill set on your team that's going to help you build the product you say you're going to build. And so if you, if you have a great team, I would highlight that. If you know that you're missing a skill set, I would be open and upfront about that and explain how you're going to address it. If there are aspects of your plan or your idea where there's some weak spots, I personally would be far more inclined to address those up front and explain to the judges how you have a plan to address them rather than just leave them unanswered. So are you going to be able to build what you say you're going to build? And I think a key part of that is, do you have the right skill sets on your team? In some cases, for simpler technological solutions, you're going to need to spend less time on that. If you're talking about a very complicated technological solution, it's going to require some key skill sets. I would be certain to identify those and how you have them on your team, or how you're going to go about accessing them. The app. So explain or show through a video walkthrough, wireframes, or mockups any progress you've made on design and coding. This helps judges evaluate your ability to implement your idea. Again, for Challenge Weekend, there's no behind-the-scenes technical review. It's up to you to show the progress you made. We say no live demos because they never go well. If you have built out features within your app, do a screen share. Sorry, it was, if I had it on the next slide. Go ahead and do a screen share, do a GIF, do wireframes that you can advance through slides to show, and just verbally explain of the elements you're showing, whether they're design level or whether they're completed features. So that's up to you to describe all that. If they're, again, back to the strategic decision, if it's a fairly simple technological solution, I think it'd be fine to walk through some wireframes and just mention, where you've gotten to. If it's more complicated, I would do a video that walks through some of that to show the judges what you've accomplished. We have some information on the Presenting at Challenge Weekend page on our website, which is under Compete. There's some information about how to how to make or how to get a video. You need to upload it to YouTube and then embed it in your slides presentation. Again, that ensures that it's going to look the exact same on the machine tomorrow night as the one you're building it on. Highly recommend that if you feel like you want to walk through some progress you've made on your app. The data. As we talked about last night, it's the largest portion of the judging criteria. It's the reason this program exists. I would spend a proportional amount of time in your presentation explicitly explaining what data you're using, both from the Colorado Information Marketplace and where else. The rules require you to use at least one data set from the Colorado Information Marketplace. I would highlight at least one and make sure that the judges know that's from SIM. But I would also talk about the other data. The use of data sources, like I said, is the most heavily weighted portion of the judging criteria. And as we talked about last night, public data is by definition available to all. It's not always easily accessible, but it's available. So what are you doing to take that data and adding value to it? And we've created this, if you go into the judging criteria page on our website, if you make it as a finalist team, there's both a code review and a data evaluation that will take place behind the scenes that we're going to provide to those final competition judges. We took the table that's on, which all that's available on our website. You're welcome to click through and read ahead. I would make sure that you're building with the end in mind. But what I've done here with this graphic on the screen is just simplified that table on the data evaluation. And I've shown that there's levels of value that we've provided as a framework to think about how you're adding value to the data. So you can start at the bottom by saying that you're providing a higher level of accessibility to the data. So even if it may be machine readable on the Colorado Information Marketplace, if you're delivering a very specific piece of information in a more user-friendly way, there's some value to that, because your average business decision maker probably not going to go to SIM and sort through the raw data. So think about accessibility as the first level of a value add. The next level up from there is you're combining and connecting disparate data sets. We think that this is where there's a tremendous amount of value that we in government collect and maintain data for a specific reason. Once we make it more easily accessible to people outside government who come at it with a different perspective, we hope that you see connections, especially as it comes out of different agencies where we in government often get siloed. So if you can make, crosswalks is the term you often hear about in the data world. If you can make those connections between data, we think there's a lot of value in that. So that's the next level up in you adding value. The next level up from there is analysis, and that is broadly defined, whether that's statistical, regression, if you're doing some sort of algorithm that's taking the data, turning it into a different insight than it was before. And the highest level is if you are both combining and analyzing the data, again, to deliver something to a business decision maker that was not available to them before. So please take a look at this graphic. We've tried to make it as easy to think about as possible. All of our judges are highly qualified, in their respective area within business or tech. Not every judge is going to be a data scientist or data expert per se, but they have this graphic, and we spoke to them about this. I told them the same thing that I'm telling you now. They're looking for this terminology for you to explain what you're doing. So please think about it in that framework. Again, if you want to deviate, that's up to you. If you have a compelling reason to do that, but I would use this framework because these are the words and the terminology that the judges are looking for. So when you get to data, be really explicit in explaining how you're adding value to the data. A couple last things, timing. 5 minutes goes fast, really fast. You have 5 minutes to present. It's a hard stop. It's a competition. We need to make sure that there's equity and fairness for everyone. So we will cut you off. I would spend a bit of time on Sunday afternoon walking through your presentation, making sure that you can get it done in 5 minutes. There will be 5 minutes of Q&A following, but I certainly wouldn't depend on that to add anything in. So make sure that you're getting through it in 5 minutes. And last tip, use your slides to augment or visually demonstrate the information you're presenting, not just repeat the text on screen. And I realize that that's hypocritical because I just walked through it. The reason was that we made it available ahead of time, and we wanted the presentation to sort of stand on its own and be self-explanatory. So in that case, do as I say, not as I do. But use your slides to just augment what you're saying. And the last thing is, I would do the best you can to find a design skill set on your team, because the more visually appealing they are, the better. It's going to go a long way toward showing that your team has what you need to make a compelling case. The submission, if you, again, on our page under the Compete tab, there's a link that says Presenting at Challenge Weekend. Most of the content I just walked through is at the bottom of that page. Some of the other guidelines about using Google Slides and things like that are on there. This submission form that you see on screen is embedded on that page. It's fairly simple. Please look at it when we're done here if you have not looked at it yet. The questions are fairly light. It's mostly administrative stuff that we need to keep track of the program, but make sure that you're ready to answer all of it. When you get to the bottom under Submit, when you hit Submit, you're going to get a link that says Edit this submission or Edit my submission. Because it's an embedded form, you right-click on that link and copy that URL or open that URL in a new tab. And then you can edit that later. That's going to be specific to you. I would save that URL off somewhere. And the reason for that is, like I said, the 5 p.m. cutoff tomorrow is a hard cutoff. It's a competition. Again, we need to ensure fairness and equity. So if you have not submitted by 5 p.m., there are no exceptions. That's it. You can't present. So sometime earlier Sunday afternoon, I would go in and fill out this form with the information you have to that point. And then I would get that edit link so that you can come back, and if you need to update. Again, the questions on the form itself are fairly light. It's not a ton of content. So you shouldn't have too much to edit, but encourage you to do that beforehand. The last field in that submission form is for the URL for your Google Slides. Obviously Google Slides, since they're in the cloud, they're dynamic. You can be editing that all the way up until 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., we're going to go in and we're going to make a copy of every one of those files so that we become the owner, so that you can continue, if you wanted to, for example, look at your slides, you could do so. So we're going to move that over, make a copy. We become the owner so that no one's able to edit those beyond that point. And again, if you've submitted, say at 3 in the afternoon, you can still be in the slides presentation working all the way up until 5 p.m. We'll hit refresh before we copy those over at 5. That's it for the presentation. I'm going to ask if we have any questions here in Denver. And I guess it wasn't fantastic taking the questions from the other locations last night. So I'll repeat questions if I get them here in Denver. And then if you have any questions following that, please grab your organizers. If you have any specific questions about the presentation, ask them earlier than later. This is your way to show all the work you've done up to this point. So we want to make sure that you're clear, that you have everything you need to succeed. So any questions here in Denver?
When you present, are you given a clicker, or is it done via laptop?
The question was, when you present, are you given a clicker or is it done via laptop? It's going to be a little bit different at each location. So find your organizer. I'm glad you asked that. I would encourage you to have a presenter and then someone who's driving at the laptop. If you're local, the presentations are going to be run on one of our machines as organizers. Whether or not they have a clicker, ask at each of your locations. Like I said, I would have, when you walk through it, I would have a team member who's up there presenting, and then I would have a team member driving so that that person presenting is not worried about that. Yes?
There's a 5-minute pitch, and then is it a 5-minute Q&A after?
Yeah, the question was, there's a 5-minute pitch and a 5-minute Q&A after. That's correct. So 5-minute hard stop on the pitch, 5-minute Q&A. We've asked the judges to be concise in their questions so that it's giving you as much time as possible to answer them, but the Q&A is also a hard stop. So whether it's a judge or you, we cut it off at 5 on that part as well.
Is there going to be a visual timer?
Is there going to be a visual timer? Yes. Great question. Yes, you will have a timer that you will see, and we'll make sure that in each location we will find the person presenting, and we will get them. We will show them the setup, before you get up there, so that you're comfortable. Yes, you will have a timer, and I can't emphasize enough, it's a hard stop at 5 minutes. Any other questions? All right, like I said, if you're here in Denver, come chat with me. If you have any questions afterwards, if you're not in Denver, please grab one of your local organizers. Like I said, we want you to be in the best position to succeed tomorrow night. Let us know how we can help you do that, and best of luck, everyone. Thank you.